So I'm just about to glue the cab front to the cab sides. I've made up the whatever you call that, foot plate, which is with the buffer beams and the side bits in there. It did say use a square to square it up, but it's self-squaring because the inner buffer beam is laser cut very accurately to be square. So as soon as you insert that, and then those sides, you can hold it together and then flood it using your liquid glue like that, and it will adhere. You don't have to apply the glue first, you just rub the brush with your mech pack liquid glue type substance along the sides, and that glues it. And then of course you can glue the outer buffer beams on later. I might have kept those off in order to paint them red separately to the rest, because it would have been an easy job to paint them red, not attached. Anyway, it's too late now, it's attached. So the cab sides, to cab front, super glue on the back of the moulded resin, not resin moulded, 3D printed part, the inner tanks. Note that the tanks are on the inside of the cab sides. It might be obvious. A bit fiddly gluing the beading on around the door, and this bit of beading, which has the knobble in the end with a hole in for your handrail, along the tank sides. I've not put the bit along the front because it's a bit fiddly. I thought I'd get this in place. So super glue's on there already. What I will do is put this in place. The table will square it up nicely, and then I can do the bit with the brush there to flood the acrylic glue. So it's two glues, one glue to glue the cab side. Oh, the other thing is there's a little hole in it. It's only on one side, and as far as I can tell from the pictures, that hole goes there, that way round. Everything else so far is kind of flexible, well, except these are handed. There's a left and a right hand of those things, but everything else is pretty universal. Doesn't matter which side you use it, but it looks like that's the first time I've got to be particular about which way round something goes. Can't film and put it in because I'm hand holding the phone, so I'll have to turn this off while I hold this in place, keep it all square, and I've got a tri-square there, I've got another square over there somewhere, and flood it with the, not flood it, but then put the mech pack round. Okay, so I've done that. Super glue onto the grey part between the clear and the grey. Yep, that's all about square. And so that is the cab front glued on to the back of the side tanks, or the saddle tanks. Oh, it's come apart there. I just need to keep it held together while the super glue goes off. The thing about the thicker super glue that I'm using, the high viscosity, is it's a little bit slower to set, which is great because it just gives you a little bit of time to move things. So it's much better on something like this. It doesn't just suddenly go off. You've got a little bit of time, but I can't talk very long. Well, that's good because the cab floor is next. Yeah, why I said that's good, because the cab floor squares it all up. So I didn't need to use that tri-square. And I can just do my running of this along. It doesn't need an awful lot. And that's it. That's enough. That's enough to glue it and hold it together. I will just check that it's glued off camera. So just a quick recap of this part of the bodywork. These pieces and the pieces which go between the frames, no particular fine preparation needed, just taking off any rough edges so that it'll fit neatly. So just a very coarse removal of any flash or whatever there is. The parts of the cab body all hold it together nice and square because you've got a floor in there which holds it square, and then you've got the cab front and cab back which holds everything square. Get it in. As you're pushing bits, say the bunker in, you may spring parts out, but don't worry about that. Get them in place, and then use your brush to get the liquid glue in, and then flood the liquid glue into the corners again, and that will, you'll get it all glued back together again. The beading's a bit tricky, putting this beading round, and just, I don't know what that's for yet, but the hole on there is thing to the front. Everything else just goes together as you would expect. That's the back of the coal bunker. I'm now going to resort to super glue. Oh, the other thing is just keep moving it on the table or else it might stick itself to the table. In fact, it's probably time to put it onto a piece of paper so that it doesn't stick to anything. And I'll try careful super glue so that the nuts are held in place, because I don't think this is a job for the thin solvent that is used to glue the plastic. As you can see, assembled before painting, because I just thought it would be easier to glue things together that way, and then I can give it all a paint and do it with the grey plastic primer. So that's how it's progressing now. Yeah, that's the other bit that's done. This bit there is after I've got these, I can start spraying these up, and I'm going to spray the sides. So I'm going to add colour, well, undercoat and matte black or whatever to the underframe part. And then when that's painted, the next job is assembling all the motor mechanisms and all the bits that go into there. But while I'm doing that assembly, of course, the paintwork on these parts can be drying, which is why I've done them in parallel, as it were, rather than in series as in the instructions. But do it in an order that you're comfortable with. That is integral, can be done entirely on its own as a separate thing. This can be done entirely on its own as a separate thing. It's not dependent on anything else. That, you can't go any further with that without putting the wheels in. And of course the boiler and smoke box and firebox is a different kettle of fish, because that's where I'm spending time with the now the high build filler. So if you look at it, that's not bad, which there's a hole in the top part of it. That's going to have to be good enough. The firebox still got marks on it, but they're not as obvious, but that's inside the cab, so I'm not concerned about that. This may need one more coat. It's got quite a few coats of the high build primer, because we can still see the lines in that, and this is at the front of the loco, so it's the bit that's seen. And the reason I'm drying it on the radiator here, because I've got the heating on, is I want it to cure nice and hard, so that it's hard enough to actually sand properly. No point doing it while it's uncured. But spraying that before doing the other gluing has given me time to get on with some other jobs while that hardens off.